Hello and welcome to episode 54 of Loaded Sport. I am your host, Skin, and I am back. And tonight we have got plenty to be talking about in the sporting world. We've got the latest in the combat world as Kemp talks us through the latest in the UFC and an early preview for some big boxing fights that are coming up very soon. Sam will walk us through what happened in the World Cup of Darts as Wales once again became the world champions of darts. And Kemp will also be walking us through what happened in the US Open in the golf as well. Aggie, unfortunately, has the task of trying to make the Formula One sound much more exciting than what it usually is as he brings us the review of the Canada GP. And as always, we're going to start with football as we have got plenty to be discussing, both from an international aspect and also a domestic aspect, with the transfer window well and truly open. Joining me are three lads that in my absence over the last couple of weeks have been doing a smashing job bringing us through the end of the season and the start of the off-season, as it would be called in National Football League. And I'm going to introduce each and every single one of them now to see how they are. And first of all, Aggie, I'm going to bring you in, mate, back on hosting duties in my absence, mate. How are you doing? And how glad are you to be able to just sit back and talk about what you want tonight?
I feel so much better knowing that you're back hosting, mate. It's very refreshing. So welcome back, and thank you for taking it back off me.
No, you're welcome, mate. Thank you for covering me while I've been gone. But we'll get stuck into a couple of Chesterfield signings finally announced that you've been bigging up for weeks on end. And as the days and weeks have gone by, starting to look a little bit silly in front of your friends. But some good news starting to come in and some official news as well. So we'll get stuck into that later on. Next up, we've got the man that is taken over on cap duties. It is Kempy. How are you doing, my friend?
Mr. White Man with the mic. And who's that? Who's that?
Who?
Oh, Dorset. Oh, I almost
Right.
forgot. I almost forgot what you'd look like after
It's
about
right.
6 months off, swanning around the country, doing whatever the fuck you want. It's beautiful to have you back, mate. Yeah, I'm really, really good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm well, mate. I'm well, thank you. I am happy to be back. You're right. I've been enjoying myself over the last couple of weeks, but yeah, I'm glad to be back. It's been a stressful couple of days, but the thought of being back with you lads, chatting shit like we do, has kept me going. So yeah, really looking forward to it and glad to be back. And last but not least is the man that for this week, and I'm sure I'll explain why, has dropped the pursuit for the Under Armour brand deal. He's dropped the cap, but he is with us as always. Sam, how are you doing, my friend?
All good, mate. All good. Yeah. Start off. Let's address the elephant in the room. The cap has gone tonight, boys. It's so hot. It's only about 22, I think it is, but it's just so humid. And I sat here wearing it just in the pre-room, I was sweating. I thought I can't do that for an hour and a half. So the cap's gone tonight. First ever time. Poured me sen a little drink as I have started the weekend early, and so little rattling you'll be able to hear from time to time will just be my rum and cola.
Absolutely, mate. And I'm joining you tonight. I nipped to Tesco after work. It don't look great on that camera, but it is a styrofoam and freshly poured. And I'm going to ask you the first question to kick us off this evening's proceedings, and then I'm going to take a big fucking gulp out of it, and as they say, to take the edge off. So we're going to start, lads, with football, and as always, we'll start with what's happened and then get into what's going to be happening. And I think a good place to start is reviewing England's performance. They played Malta on Friday. In Malta, they played at Old Trafford against North Macedonia on Monday, and winning both games by an aggregate score of 11-0. So I think the standard when it comes to England performances in qualifying, but I do think a couple of highlights from that is the performance of Bukayo Saka, who is coming more into his own on the international stage, but also the selection in both games of Trent Alexander-Arnold in that midfield role, a role that he has moved into slightly as the season has progressed with Liverpool, but is now doing that on an international stage, and I think has performed phenomenally well in that role. But Sam, where do you think, going into next year's Euros, where do you think we stand now with the potential lineup going into that tournament with what you've seen in the past two games?
Potential, mate, will always be right up there, one or two with us and France. You've got to say, in terms of winning the whole thing, anything other than a trophy would be a failure in my eyes. So the emergence of Trent in that centre midfield just gives us a different dynamic. It's almost like having a Beckham at centre mid. His passing range is just absolutely phenomenal. I'm still waiting for Klopp to apologise to Gareth Southgate for slagging him off 2 years ago when he played him centre mid, first person to play him centre mid against, I think it was Andorra, and he didn't particularly play well. And Klopp went back into the interview afterwards and said, "What do you expect when you play the world's best right back in centre mid?" Giving him a bit of a dig. But then he finished the second half of the season at Liverpool centre mid, and he was probably one of the best centre mids in the league. So, yeah, I'm still waiting for that apology. I don't quite think it's going to come myself, but. Yeah, that midfield trio of Rice just sat potentially behind Trent and Bellingham. It's just absolutely mouthwatering. Whether or not he's got the absolute, whether he's got the balls to play that, because it was quite an open formation. Because Trent, as we know, is not the best defender. But yeah, I'm refusing to get my hopes up because we do this every single year, and Kemp will definitely come in and level us off as he always does. So yeah. The expectations are, I still expect us to compete because we should with that squad, no matter who's the manager. But whether or not he's the man that can get us that piece of hardware is another thing.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right that there were times in the World Cup where, playing Jude and then playing him in an advanced position. There were games like the Wales game, the Senegal game, I suppose, especially where they wanted to look like they played forward. They were being less patient. They were being more free. And I think Trent playing in that role opens that up with his range of passing, as you mentioned there. Like his ball, for everyone's talking about that Saka screamer, that the ball from Trent was out of this world, and I think was right up there in terms of quality of pass, alongside the quality of the finish from Saka as well. So it does open things up like that, especially with pacey players like a Saka who wants to get in behind, who knows what Trent can do. Players like Rashford as well. His strengths at Man United have always been playing off the last man's shoulder with 30, 40 yards behind him to goal. So that should definitely play into the hands if Trent keeps up that form and Gareth, like you say, sticks with that risk going into a major tournament against some tougher teams. But Aggie, what are your thoughts on the game, mate? Is it a case of it's definitely coming home now after an aggregate score of 4-0, or have you got any reservations based on what you've seen in the latest two games?
Based upon the latest two games, I think we've played quite well, but you've got to think of like the opposition that we've gone up against. Malta and North Macedonia aren't really two sides that are going to be a threat to us at any point anyway. So I usually do stand very firmly on the hype train and say, yeah, it's coming home. But, over the last couple of years, it's the hope that's killed me off. And I really feel that with Gareth Southgate in charge, we are not maximising the potential that this squad's got. And I think we do need to look elsewhere to try and push ourselves over the line, win a World Cup or win a Euros. We have a squad here that's capable of winning a major tournament, and we're just not utilising it. And I dare say that now has to go on to the manager.
I will say, just while you're on that subject of North Macedonia, in North Macedonia in the past have caused us problems. We've drew 0-0 with them at Old Trafford. They drew 2-2 with us at Old Trafford, and that was in the prime Scholes era. Can you remember when Scholes ducked on foot corner and it went straight in? They've caused us problems in the past. Yeah, so I think we've drawn twice against them. I think we've probably won 3 times against them. So it's not the sort of team that in the past we've blown over, and people are going to say, yeah, it's only North Macedonia, but in the past they've caused us problems. So the fact that we absolutely demolished them in the way we did is definitely positive. That was their biggest ever defeat at 6-0, I think it was, and then went and obviously put a 7th past them. So yeah, that's on record as their biggest ever international defeat. So we'll take that. I think the Old Trafford game was a much better game than the Malta game. I thought the Malta game was really boring, to be honest, but yeah, we played well in that second game.
Yeah, it is that type of England qualifying game going away. It always seems to be kind of the same, doesn't it? It's comfortable, like I say, it's boring. Half an hour in, you kind of like you either turned it off or you're staring more at your phone than you are at the screen. It's that classic thing. But I think being at Old Trafford was really good. Atmosphere was great. It was good to see an England international game back at Old Trafford. But Kemp, I'm going to bring you in for this next point because it was a bit of a spirited debate in the chat. And you've been the biggest sort of anti-Southgate in terms of tactical choices and what he can do mid-game. And the discussion that we had, and it was kind of me and then Sam and Mudge, of the France game. Yes, on paper, the Kane thing was the biggest choice, the biggest reason why it didn't go to extra time or why we didn't get that chance of winning. But my point was the tactical decisions that Southgate made along the way that could or should have given us a better chance of not having to rely on Kane missing that penalty, because players miss penalties, at points. Very rarely does any player go through the whole career not missing a penalty. So, things like the point I've always brought up, Rashford only getting 6 minutes when at that point in the tournament he'd been our top scorer. A play like Jack Grealish, where we were dominating set pieces, and he's the most fouled player in the world, it seems, coming on with about 20 seconds to go in the 98th minute. So things like that along the way where he's been scared to pull the trigger. Do you think with his decision to play Trent in that midfield role and seemingly wanting to his players to be more attacking, have more freedom, express themselves a little bit more, does just off of that small sample size suggest that he is learning from his mistakes and he may be more brave going into a major tournament? Or do you think it is a case of the playing easier team so he can afford to do that?
Yeah, exactly that. The second bit that you said there, we're playing against a team, North Macedonia, that, Sam, you make a point there of we've drawn with them in the past. That I would put down to being a pitiful result then, rather than an amazing result now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think 7-0 against North Macedonia is I wouldn't expect 7-0, I don't think, against anyone, even San Marino. I think that's really good going, and I think it shows that Trent in that midfield role has got a real creative spark about him, and that's been the most frustrating thing for me when people have been saying about Trent, he's not good enough, he needs dropping and all that. It's not that. He can't defend. It's as simple as that. Put him in a different role and he'd fly, and obviously he has. So yeah, for me, Southgate's got that freedom. And we see it in qualifying all the time. We absolutely piss qualifying. We beat Italy. Obviously, we smashed North Macedonia. We've come through qualifying with flying colours in the past few tournaments. That's not the problem. If qualifying was the tournament, we'd be winning it, but it's not. And you're absolutely right, I think, Dawson, in the France point. I think Harry Kane's penalty is a very, very easy target for people to look at that one pivotal part of the game and say, well, if Harry Kane scores that penalty, then, we wouldn't have lost. Well, if I'm right in thinking, Harry Kane was scoring that penalty to take his level. Is that right?
That's right.
Right. So bringing Rashford on with 6 minutes left and whatever he did, bringing Grealish on with 40 seconds left or whatever, it's still the poor tactical decisions and errors of judgment from Southgate that I've always seen. Never changes it, hasn't got the capability to change it when he needs to change it. And ultimately, when you come up against these top teams and these top managers, they can pivot. They can change the game. Mancini did it for Italy like that. Changed the game, completely took it away from us, and we didn't have a fucking clue. And that's the thing. When you're playing against plumbers and electricians from North Macedonia and wherever, San Marino and all this bollocks, all these teams that were playing in qualifying, that's great because they've not got the capability or the players to change anything or affect the game in any way. For me, it's going to happen the exact same as it always does. We'll waltz through qualifying. We'll pick up maximum points through qualifying is 18 points or whatever it is. I don't know, 6 games, whatever it might be. However many games there are, we'll pick up maximum points. And then when we get to the tournament, we'll draw a decent side in the quarterfinal or the last 16, and we'll be out like a light. I couldn't agree more with what Adam said, and I'm glad that he's finally come onto the right path. I've guided him into the right path eventually. This team now is really coming into its peak. We've got Rice, who I think is coming into his athletic peak. We've got Saka, we've got Trent, we've got Rashford. All these players around sort of mid-20s, they're all coming into their athletic peak now. This is when we need to make the change. Southgate's going to have this tournament, we know that. They're not going to sack him for the tournament unless something crazy happens. But for me, it's going to happen the exact same way. I've got absolutely no expectations going into the tournament. And now we really need to start thinking, who are we going to target as our manager for when Gareth Southgate inevitably goes?
If he does. But yeah, that's fair. That's it now for close to 3 months. Next games, Euro qualifier at the start of September away in Ukraine. Naturally that'll be a neutral venue, but that is what it's listed as. Followed shortly after a friendly against Scotland, and then 2 games in October and 2 games in November. So 6 games between now and the end of the year for England. 2 of those are friendlies, and we haven't got another one for about 2.5 months. So I suppose it will be a case of if, come the end of the year when we're talking about it, and they've faced Italy, they've gone away to North Macedonia, like Sam said, have caused problems before. If the performances are still positive and the wins are still there, maybe, just maybe, there'll be a bit of hope going into 2024 as they prepare for the Euros, but time will tell. On that one, Today has been the release of the EFL fixtures. Championship, League One and League Two fixtures have been released for all teams taking part following the release of the Premier League fixtures last year. And we will have the National League fixtures coming out next week. So, Aggie, get yourself ready for a good in-depth discussion on that in episode 55. But, Sam, you're obviously the only one of us that have a sort of hat in the pot, or a key in the pot, or whatever you want. I don't know where I've pulled that from. Supporting Derby in League One. They are currently down with the bookies as the favourites to win League One. Looking at the fixtures, it's so hard to tell. There's going to be so many things that happen between now and then. But, opening day, how does it look? Closing day, potentially sealing a title, sealing promotion, or getting that last playoff spot. What are your sort of initial thoughts based on that fixture release?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, the actual opening of the season, I mean, this is all touch wood and, theoretical speaking. The opening and closing of the season for Derby, I think, is quite kind. So, for example, the first 4 games with at home, 3 out of 4 in the start of the season. It's Wigan at home, Oxford at home, Fleetwood at home, and Burton away. So that's the start of the season. So, hit the ground running, get a bit of momentum early. And to finish the season, we are last 5 games, it's 3 away and 2 at home, but you think 2 games at home is Carlisle United and Leyton Orient. 2 games, Derby's pedigree, expected putting them away at home, and then away is Cambridge United, Wycombe Wanderers, and Portsmouth. So that's the final 5 games for Derby, and to be honest, I think they're quite kind as far as the fixture schedule goes. So yeah, quite happy with the draw. I think we also got Blackpool in the first round at Carabao Cup as well. So. That's interesting. I actually went to see Derby v Blackpool in Carabao Cup once at Pride Park. We lost on penalties. Darren Moore missed the deciding penalty, skied it, funnily enough. And now, we've got covering Darren Moore a bit later. But it's quite a kind fixture list, I think. I don't like us being favourites. I still think we need another out-and-out striker, certainly to at least replace Ditsy McGoldrick. Huge loss gone to Notts County. Can't blame him. Boiled club, it's what he's always wanted. So yeah, fair play to him, but it's left us with a massive hole now that we need to fill. We've made a couple of signings here and there. Solid signings as well by the looks of things. Couple of League One winners in there. One of them played for Hull as well, I think, last season. So yeah, we're just crying out for a striker, but Warney knows it. I watched an interview with him yesterday, and he's well aware that they obviously need a striker. So it's something they're still in the market for, and I'm sure they'll cover that at some point.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll move on to the next bit with something that you mentioned there. You mentioned Darren Moore, and yeah, it was 3 days ago, Monday, I believe, where in the same day it was announced that Gary O'Neill was leaving Bournemouth and very quickly replaced, and Darren Moore, probably even more shockingly, was leaving Sheffield Wednesday by mutual consent. There have been a couple of rumours as to who will be replacing him. Stephen Gerrard seems to be the leading name in that. But Kempy, I'll come to you. You had a lot to say about Sheffield Wednesday, naturally being a Blaze fan, but as much as you don't want them to do well to an extent, quite a shocking and out of nowhere announcement, I think.
Yeah, one I'm delighted with on 2 fronts. First of all, I really like Darren Moore. Probably the Sheffield Wednesday manager that I like the most out of any Sheffield Wednesday manager ever. Comes across really, really well in his interviews and in his press. I saw a few clips of him at Hillsborough when they obviously do the high-ho silver lining at the start, and he was, they were really pushing for promotion at that point, and he was clapping away, getting all the fans riled up, and yeah, it was. I think it might be the playoffs actually, but it was really, really good to see, and it's quite clear that he had a passion for the club and really wanted to do well. I know Dawson. I think you might have met him very, very briefly a few years ago when he were at Doncaster Rovers.
That's right. I was going to say that yeah, I met him pre-season doing team photos with sponsors and stuff like that. It was a 20-second conversation, but seemed really genuine, really sound. Yeah. So I believe everything you've just said there.
Yeah, really, really nice bloke. And obviously, I listen to BBC Radio Sheffield quite a lot. Obviously, local radio station, Sheffield United coverage, etc. And obviously, with him being Sheffield Wednesday manager or previous Sheffield Wednesday manager, was on there quite a lot doing interviews, and again, came across really well. That's one reason why I'm delighted, because now I can like him even more because he's not the Sheffield Wednesday manager. So fingers crossed he gets a good job and I can back whoever the team is that he manages. And twofold is that I think he's a really good manager. and obviously they got 90 odd points, whatever it was, turned over that 4-0 deficit in the first leg of the playoffs and managed to win the playoffs, albeit quite luckily. But hey ho, that they won the playoffs. And I think he did a really good job at Wednesday in difficult circumstances, because there were a lot of financial questions over them. I think they were very, very close to being in breach of financial fair play at one point, and I think a transfer embargo at some point as well during his tenure. So any Wednesday fans in any communities or the Discord that would like to correct me on that one, then please do so. But I think they're really going to struggle now. I thought with more in charge and some smart recruitment, I think they might have finished potentially mid-table, and then to kick on next season and hopefully push themselves up to the top of the Championship and hopefully back to the Premier League where they think they belong. But now, if they're going to get Steven Gerrard in, no bueno for me. Did an okay job at Rangers. I've done better on Football Manager, but I won't go there. And then at Villa absolutely capitulated. And I just think with Wednesday, how they are at the moment, they've got 14 players registered. They're about to lose their best player, Deli Bashiru. They've got no coaching staff. They've got no head of recruitment. And we're a month and a bit away from the start of the season. So if Steven Gerrard's coming in, I feel sorry for the bloke, and I really don't think he'll do well. And fingers crossed, he takes them back down to League One. So good decision, Mr. Chansiri. You've got my vote on that one. But unfortunately for all the Wednesday fans out there, I think it's really, really terrible news.
I'm sure a lot of Sheffield Wednesday fans would agree with that, because it was pretty much out of nowhere. Sam, I'm going to come to you.
What's interesting as well, sorry, just before you carry on.
No, that's fine by me. I'm trying to buy time, so please.
No, it's all right. No, it's just the reason that I wanted to jump in there was kind of to mention the fact that you mentioned there Gary O'Neill getting released from Bournemouth. Then they brought in a manager, I think it was the day later. So it's obvious that they've been having conversations behind closed doors.
It wasn't even a day later. It was announced in the morning that Gary O'Neill had left, and then sort of late afternoon they stayed announced. Yeah, so it was literally the same day. That's
the thing with Darren Moore, is that they've not got somebody lined up. So for me, he's either, I genuinely think they've had a conversation, and he said to Chansiri, the chairman of Sheffield Wednesday, we need X amount of money for X amount of players, and we need to do this and we need to do that. And Chansiri's turned around and probably said, no, I'm not giving you that. And I think that's what's happened, because if the remit to get them out of League One, if that's what the remit was at the start of the season for Darren Moore, which you would imagine that that's what it was for a club like Sheffield Wednesday with the players and the wage bill that they got, he's done it. Don't matter whether you finish top of the league, top of the tree by 120 points, or you sneak it in playoffs at last day. It's irrelevant. You know, that League One trophy is not that prestigious, is it? It's all about getting up to the Championship. It's like us, Burnley and Luton. Burnley and Luton have got the exact same thing in the end. They're in the Premier League. Don't matter how they got there. You know, Burnley were way more impressive over the season. Don't matter how they got there. So very, very strange decision. And like I say, I think it will probably have been a fallout between the two parties. And there is an interview, I believe, out on Talk Sport this evening as we record on Wednesday, a Darren Moore interview where he'll spill the beans, as it were. You what, sorry?
Wednesday?
I can't hear
you. Wednesday?
Thursday, Jesus, Thursday, yeah, Jesus.
I don't know. I don't know if you can remember. It was about 6 months ago, while seasons were on. This is to you, Kem. When we was actually discussing Chef Wednesday, and I think it might have been just after Christmas, and you said the fans wanted him out, if you remember. And then I got the results up, and I said, "Why did they want him out? He's lost he's lost once in the last 10 games or something." So for me, it's always been a bit of a weird relationship between Darren Moore and the Wednesday fans. It's like there's never quite been that clear. As you say, in the playoffs, it was different. And I think it was the 4-0 going into the 4-0 game, second leg. It, Io Silverline will get fans going, and they might have finally connected, but. Even when they were doing so well just after Christmas, there was always that theme that the fans weren't quite happy with him, and it never quite sat right with me. Why?
Well, that's why it makes it so much stranger for me, because, like you say, you are absolutely right. Earlier on in the season, the fans were coming on. I've mentioned it before, BBC Radio Sheffield, when they were at top of or second in the league, and saying they wanted Darren Moore gone. They were. It's a point of fact. I didn't understand it. I was hoping they would get rid of him because, like I say, I like him. But I think towards the back end of the season, I think that relationship, like you say there, was rebuilt very much. And I think it did get to the point where they were on very, very good terms, and obviously with the turnover in the playoffs and the playoff win, I think that relationship was mended and actually was stronger than ever. So that's why it makes it even stranger for me that at the end of the season, when they finally sort of all cohesive unit got together and everybody's happy they've got promoted, then they get rid of him. That's the biggest thing. You make a point there in that you never really understood what the relationship was, but you've actually made that point even stronger as to why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sam, I'm going to come to you for this one. I didn't send this across to you because I wanted to, probably the wrong idea, to not give you the opportunity to think about it.
Nice one, mate.
Before I come to you to kick off the transfer news. So something that I noticed, both with Bournemouth that we've just been discussing there, and also Spurs. So Bournemouth brought in, apologies for the potential terrible pronunciation, but Andoni Iraola, I believe, is a previous Real Sociedad manager. And Spurs, as you lads have discussed recently, bringing in Ange Postecoglou.
Postecoglou, yeah.
Now, with those two deals, they've been given a 2-year deal. Okay, now we know how quickly managers can be chucked to the side and everything else like that. But do you think as a manager, and it might just be a quick no, I disagree, but do you think as a manager you might feel like the board or the club isn't buying into you or what you can bring to the table by only offering you 2 years? Because we always say the first year is, you get your summer transfer window. You hopefully, depending on when you come in, you bring in the kind of players that fit in with what you want to do. The season and training and everything else like that is about getting used to your system. But then you've only got 1 year to then do what you need to do, knowing that your contract is running out. Just wanted to sort of get your thoughts on where you stand with that. Of a manager's given 2 years, is that not an initial sort of feeling of a lack of confidence in what you could bring to the table or what you can offer?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I think it's a safeguarding feature, isn't it? I think there's it's a safe bet. Once bitten, twice shy. Look at Mourinho with Tottenham. He absolutely rinsed him when they sacked him. So I think it's just Daniel Levy not falling for that same thing twice. We all know how frugal he is. Look at the Harry Kane deal currently now trying to go through. It's not happening because of him. So I think 2 year, it sounds about right. And it's not, I don't see it as a 2 year deadline myself. I'd see it obviously because it's always going to be updated and, renewed if it does well.
There is an option for a third year for both for Bournemouth and Postecoglou as well. We'll point that out. But yeah, just when I saw it, I just thought, I don't know if that sits right with me. We talk about projects and we talk about, I just feel like if you're on a 2 year deal, yes, the option's there, but I don't know. I feel like if I was in that position, I feel like the club's not trusting me from the start. So, and I get if you do get sacked a year in, if you're on a 5 year deal, it's a massive payout. I understand
exactly. That's all. That's for me all it boils down to. It's just that if they don't want to do it. I mean, we all laughed at Newcastle when Mike Ashley signed Alan Pardew to a 7-year contract. So it's literally the opposite end of the scale to that. I don't see it as a big deal myself. I think it's a 2 year. If you say, I didn't know the extent of the addition of a third year. So no, I think if you, like you say, you get the first season to kind of bed yourself in, getting the players you want, get your system in place. I think if you're starting to see results in the second year, I think that's when the chairman will look, right, we're going to activate your third year. We'll probably look to discuss putting an extension in. So I think it's a safe bet. It's a club-friendly contract. It's something that just suits Daniel Levy down to the ground. It's all down from that Jose Mourinho contract, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. Aggie, have you got anything different to say to that, or do you agree with Sam's points there?
I kind of agree. I just think it's a standard 2 year contract, a standard thing for managers at the moment because the turnover is so high. Managers, like you said, you get a year to do your own transfers, but most managers don't even make it through a year, do they, with the club?
Graham Potter, perfect example recently.
Well, Chelsea in general, isn't it? I mean, didn't Tuchel go pretty soon, and then Potter, and then Lampard, and they're on like 4 managers in a 12-month period. So, prime example is Chelsea, yeah.
That's fair. I'm going to stick with you, Aggie. We're going to get stuck into some transfer news now. But I think before we start at the top and we talk about Saudi Arabia being linked with every single player over 30, and we talk about Man City potentially holding players and Arsenal looking to really push on to be a league contender this year and everything else, it's only right that we start with a team that, again, we've got a bit of passion for, and that is Chesterfield. So, Adam, after weeks of talking about in the chats about town was signing these players, and these players have been seen at the ground, and these players were seen doing the local shop at the big Tesco next to the ground and all this kind of stuff. In the past 24 hours, Chesterfield have finally announced two major signings to go along with the earlier signing of Bailey from Alfreton Town. So Tom Naylor from Wigan, mainly a midfielder, but does have the ability to play at centre back as well. And also Will Grigg, who was a bit of a cult hero a few years back, and can play right up top, knows where the net is, the exact kind of player that I think Chesterfield were missing last year to sort of tip them over the edge or put them right up there with the Wrexham and Notts County. So as a Chesterfield fan, based on those two signings, how does that make you feel as a fan of Town?
I think we were favourites to go up before, but now it's a case of, you're throwing money, you're throwing everything you've got at it. This is our one chance to go up. I think if we don't go up this season, there's going to be a little bit of repercussion. We're going to have to let a few players go. We're going to probably struggle in the National League for a little bit longer. It's kind of like you throw all your eggs into one basket, isn't it? And I know we've still got a couple more players that we could potentially be signing. But, mate, you've got to stop that while I'm talking. You know what I'm like with being distracted. But no, Will Grigg, I think it's a difficult one with Will Grigg because he's obviously a known goal scorer at higher levels. He's played on the international stage. Of course, there's the song about him. But last season, I think he scored 9 goals in 31 games, I think it was, in League Two. And I know he's going to move down to the National League, and it could easily be another case of Paul Mullen. We know that obviously what he did last season. Hopefully that is going to be the case, and he's going to break a couple of records or finish top goal scorer at the very least. But I think it's a case of he needs to get that confidence back. He is a proven goal scorer, and I think under Paul Cook he could do that. I remember the only game I've really seen him scoring live was when he scored the only goal in a 1-0 win over a Pep Guardiola Man City side.
Yeah, and that was what I was going to mention there, because you're right, and as I mentioned, he's a bit of a cult hero. While he was at Wigan, he scored 53 goals in 133 games, so a relatively respectable sort of ratio. Since then, not really been sort of done too much in the last 3 or 4 years. Sunderland, 5 goals in 47 games. Milton Keynes on loan, 8 goals in 20. Rotherham on loan, 2 goals in 19. And then, like you say there, with Milton Keynes, it was 5 goals in 42. So, you're certainly not getting the same player that was that cult hero. Will Grigg's on fire, scoring at international level for Northern Ireland, scoring, as you mentioned there. I was up in Glasgow at the time for work and remember seeing that goal against Man City to, a big cup set, and not the first time we're going to beat Man City in the FA Cup. But yeah, you're getting a player that is dropping down a couple of levels, but players like that who know where the net is, certainly you would assume that you're going to get a better goals to game ratio over this next season based on the level that he's now at. But it's pretty much assumed that Andrew Dallas as well. I know he was the player that we mentioned. If there was one player Town could sign, it would be him. It is pretty much official, but unofficial that he is signed and ready to go. It's just a case of when it will be announced, given the number 9 shirt as well. So. And Sam and Kemp, just to sort of give you a bit of context, Chesterfield, when the odds were finally released for the National League, Chesterfield were 5-1 favourites. In the last 24 hours since announcing Naylor and Grigg as their first 2 signings, they've gone down to 7-2. So I think that shows what a real statement of intent that those signings are, alongside the assumed Dallas signing and potentially more along the line as well. I think, Adam, you mentioned obviously they need a goalkeeper. Coughlin's gone back to Port Vale and Fitzsimons has gone to Scunthorpe. So I believe you mentioned they had a keeper from Everton coming in. Maybe the relationship with Sean Dyche has helped you out with that one.
Yeah, we've had players on loan from Burnley before. We had Jordan Cropper a couple of years ago when he had Sean Dyche as manager there. So he's still got a bit of love for the club. So whenever he's a manager at a high level, he'll try and help us out. There's a goalkeeper who played in goal for Chester last year. I've heard plenty of rumours that he's going to be signing for us on loan for the season. Harry Trier, I think his name is. Played every game for them in the National League North last season and got a bit of experience. I wouldn't like to see him as the first choice goalkeeper unless he's really been exceptional for Chester, but we need a goalkeeper, and if we can sign another one on a permanent basis, I'd put us in a very good position. The signing for me is Tom Naylor. He played 36 games in the Championship last season, and he's moved down to the National League. It's really confused me as to why he's chosen to make that move. His comments are literally that he wanted to play under Paul Cook, and I thought that's crazy.
It was clear. He'd made it clear about a previous relationship with him, hadn't he? So yeah, we spoke about a few weeks ago about using resource and relationships, and that's definitely played in your favour there.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm looking forward to see what Naylor can bring. I'd like to see how Bailey Hobson's going to ease himself into this team. And, of course, Will Grigg. I think you need that sort of goal scorer. It's going to get you 20-plus goals in this division. And he's going to come up against defences that are just going to leak goals. And that's where you're really going to see him improve his money's worth, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. As a Town fan, just in a couple of words, the signings make you excited? Are you buzzing? Are you like, this is the season, or are they like, right, they're taking the right steps?
Yeah, hyped. Last season I was a bit off it because of Wrexham and Notts County, but this season I'm all in on it.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. Sam, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to save one specific transfer for Kemp for reasons that will become clear when the time comes. But I want to come to you, Sam, for a bit of a discussion on Saudi Arabia activity. They've signed Kante, Benzema, a couple of other players as well that are due to go and are very heavily rumoured to go, especially a lot of Chelsea-based players as well. And will not at this time get into, the rumours and things like that, because it's a bit of a murky water, I think. But Jamie Carragher, I don't know if you saw, I think it was on Twitter, he basically said,
Neville was before him as well.
Okay, so basically calling out to, the footballing governing bodies to say, this needs to be looked at and regulated. But a lot of people have then come out and said, well, what about Madrid in their prime, but, the Galacticos era of getting the biggest players? What about the Premier League spending huge amounts of money? Do you think that the cause for concern is because it's a different part of the world, one that historically hasn't been sort of a major footballing nation, or do you think those opinions and concerns are rightly justified?
It's a difficult one. I personally don't particularly mind the activity at the Saudi Arabia. Yeah, they're dodgy, aren't they? We know that. It's a lot of blood money, oil money, and all that. But I don't particularly mind it. I must admit, it's not don't mind the blood money, but it's more obviously the players going of, it's going to be another league that's going to be popping up, going to be more popular. Ronaldo seems to have spearheaded some kind of move there. But no, I don't mind it myself. Yeah, Gary Neville come out first and said it, and then 24 hours later his mate Jamie Carragher come out pretty much echoed the exact same sentiment. So I think it's just them pandering a bit. They didn't seem to mind going over to that part of the world in the World Cup and taking their money and presenting and shit like that. So yeah, for me it's a bit hypocritical. Just go and earn your money however you can. If it's there, take it. I can't fault these players myself.
Just to piggyback on that, Dawson, before you come.
I was going to ask for you, because there was something you'd mentioned as well, mate. So please give your thoughts on it.
Well, you tell me what I mentioned first, because I might fuck off onto a different path.
Well, I can't remember exactly. I was literally going to grab my phone and try and find what it was, but you had said something, and I was hoping you were going to sort of bring that back up again for a proper discussion. So. Either you'll start and I'll go, yeah, that was it, or I'll
maybe.
You go with the point you want to go with, mate.
Maybe. No, that's fair enough. I think for me, hypocrisy is the word that Sam used really, really well there. I think if it was Manchester United or Liverpool making these types of transfers and these types of moves, I'm not quite sure they'd be as up in arms about it as they are. I watched the Champions League final with an Arsenal fan and a Liverpool fan. And when Liverpool were winning Champions Leagues, no problem with spending all the money in the world and however much they spent on players like Van Dijk and Alisson, and that's no problem. But as soon as City do it, then it's tarred and it's tarnished. And I understand that the charges levied against City are obviously a big factor in that, and obviously we'll see what happens with that. But ultimately, this has always happened in one way or another. You mentioned there the Galacticos, Dawson. The reason that Real Madrid were able to utilise those players and spend as much on players as they did is because when they brought the Galacticos in, they would get the sponsors. They would get half of the sponsorship money that the Galacticos would earn from companies like Nike and Adidas and stuff like that. That's how Real Madrid were able to sign these players and able to bring them on board, because they worked their way around the financial rules that were in place at that time.
And they were funded by the government. And they were funded by the government.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. The Real Madrid Real Madrid are the government's team. They are the Spanish government's team, literally.
Yeah.
So it's one of them where I think it's all fair game in football, because that's the way football has gone. That it's sold to the highest bidder, and that's it. And football's been all about money for years and years and years. And the jumping off point, you could probably say, was 30 years ago with the invention of the Premier League. And ultimately, ever since then, it's been a race to the bottom. For me, The way they need to stop this is by introducing salary caps across the board. FIFA need to intervene, and they need to say, right, all these governing bodies, we're taking control of Saudi Arabia's footballing governing body, UEFA, CONCACAF, all these governing bodies that FIFA are meant to be in control of, and say, right, you've all got X, Y, Z salary cap, and that's what we need to do. Because then the market comes gradually down or plateaus for every single player at every single club. So you can't just say, oh, well, this club have put a salary cap on there, so I'm going to go to Man City, or I'm going to go to Arsenal or wherever, and I'm going to earn more money. If there's a salary cap for everybody, that's the way that you deal with it. Is that realistic? Probably not. And the other question that you've got to ask yourself is, are Saudi Arabia long-term players in this? Because we've mentioned it before, Saudi Arabia are obviously make all their money by oil. They extract oil, and then obviously they sell it across the world, and that's how they make so much money. But the oil reserves one day are going to run dry. And ultimately, we are going to get to a point where we're looking for renewable energy rather than oil energy. And I don't want to get away from sport too much, but that's a bit of background as to why Saudi Arabia are making these moves, because they're trying to generate as much revenue as they possibly can before all that money fucks off. So I understand why they're doing it. But are they a flash in the pan in that respect? And are they a flash in the pan like China? You got, what was his name? The Chelsea lad, Oscar, was it? Who went to China in his prime. I think Hulk went to Russia at one point as well.
Russia was same.
He went to China when he still had a bit. As well. Like, they seemed to start getting the ball rolling and didn't really go anywhere.
And exactly that. So are we going to see that from Saudi Arabia? Are we going to see this, right? Everybody get all these players in, and then if they don't win the bid for the 2030 World Cup, we're not bothered about football anymore. We're just going to throw that toy away. So to be seen and to be confirmed with Saudi Arabia, for me, I'm not massively concerned, because they're not signing Mbappe or Haaland. They're not signing these players that are in their prime, in their peak.
I don't know.
And ready
I don't
to
know.
go. Well, they're not, though, are they? I've not seen it. I've not seen any confirmed signings.
No confirmed, but the recent heavily linked one is Bernardo Silva, who's in absolute peak of his powers, one of the best midfielders in the world right now. And do you know what? If that happens, I'll probably change my mind. He's 28 years old. You're absolutely right. He's at his peak. He's in his prime. So you know what? If that happens, I'll probably think I'm a little bit more concerned about this than I was before. But at this moment in time, while we sit here on the 22nd of June, 2023, it's been Ronaldo, it's been Kante, it's been, these players that are coming really towards the end of their career. And that doesn't concern me too much. Go and get your money, lads. But if we do start seeing the Saudi Arabians taking away all the best players in the Premier League, that is going to diminish our quality. But it also means that Sheffield United might stay up. I will give a shout out to Heung-min Son as well, because it was heavily linked to Saudi Arabia all this week, and yesterday he come out vocally and he said he's got absolutely no interest in joining that league. His futures with Tottenham it's his best league in the world, in the Premier League, so he's not going for money. Money doesn't motivate him. Obviously, he's already on a decent whack himself, but he said he's more than happy to stay in the Premier League. So
as long as that continues, that trend continues, where you've got people at the peak and they're not saying, no, not Saudi yet. I'll achieve stuff and then I'll go there at the end of my career and get a bag if I need it or whatever it might be. So if that trend continues, I'm perfectly happy with what Saudi Arabia are doing at the moment. Obviously, in footballing terms, nothing else. And I think, like you say there, Sam, Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, once again, unlike them two, being a little bit hypocritical.
So, and Kemp, I'm going to stick with you for the this next one, and it is the room. Well, it now confirmed, I suppose, signing of Kai Havertz to Arsenal. That you mentioned last week, the clip that I made of you saying you're putting your mortgage on Arsenal getting top four, and then you made the comment in our chats about the fact that, oh shit, they're actually they're taking this seriously.
That wasn't for Havertz. That wasn't for
no, it wasn't. But it was the fact that they were looking to spend a lot of money on a few different players. But Declan Rice still heavily rumoured, and there's been some rumours of City potentially coming in, and I'll get on to City very shortly with you, Aggie. But Kai Havertz, I believe it's 60 million plus 5 million in add-ons. I believe it is the fee. He hasn't set the world on fire since joining Chelsea. They've played him as an out-and-out striker, and he certainly hasn't returned the sort of, again, goals-to-games ratio that you would expect at that level. He has got a Champions League winning goal to his name. Is that the kind of signing that makes you, as someone that has doubted Arsenal more than anyone, of, right, okay, they've got a foundation, they've got a young squad, these are those little pieces now that they need to get them over the edge? Is Kai Havertz that guy? or what do you personally see him as the kind of signing for Arsenal?
Signing Kai Havertz for £65 million potentially reinforces my opinion that Arsenal won't finish second again next year. 19 goals from 91 appearances for Chelsea. That is absolutely pitiful. And I understand that this season has been an absolute off-season for Chelsea. I get that. None of them players have surrounded themselves in glory. I get that also. But, the seasons before that, when Thomas Tuchel was in his prime, winning Champions League, etc., they had an out-and-out striker to go to and whatever else it might be. There's just no excuse for that lack of return. Kai Havertz for that amount of money. We've criticised Chelsea over the past year or so, and Todd Bowley playing real-life Football Manager and not doing it very well, spending money like it's going out of fashion and putting players on 9-year contracts. But do you know what? This is unbelievable business for Chelsea. Getting rid of him for £65 million is chef's kiss for Chelsea. Well done. For Arsenal, it's an absolutely pitiful signing. I could probably think of 3 or 4 midfielders that they could probably sign for a lot less than that, who'd do a lot better a job. Morgan Gibbs-White being one of them. Personally, I think if they sign Morgan Gibbs-White for that sort of same role in that number 10, I think he'd be much better in that position than Kai Havertz, and I think he'd probably be cheaper. So yeah, I think it's really, really bad business from them, and it just reinforces my opinion that Arsenal aren't going to get anywhere near. The one that concerns me is Jurriën Timber. Because he's a fantastic player from what I've seen. So if they do get him, my opinion on Arsenal may slightly shift a little bit, but that business, £65 million for Kai Havertz, I think that's probably the worst signing of the window so far. I know it's early days, but that's a bad one, that.
Well, if and when they sign Rice and Timber, I'll make sure to bring it up.
They are not signing Rice. They are not signing Rice. Absolutely fucking not.
You never know. But Aggie, you were smirking a couple of times there, and in the chats, you seem to be a little bit more of a positive opinion towards the signing of Havertz to Arsenal. And again, you were probably, as much as Kemp was the biggest anti-Arsenal, you were probably the biggest pro-Arsenal. Do you think that is a positive step for them to bring in a player that again has scored a Champions League winning goal?
I think that's all about he scored, though, isn't it? I think 65 is a bit too much. I think they could have probably got him for a bit cheaper, and if they'd been a bit smarter about it, like Kemp's already said, they might have been able to get somebody else for a similar sort of price that'd have been a bit more effective. But I like it from a depth perspective. We said that Arsenal missed out last season because they didn't have enough depth, and they've gone out there and bought somebody that's going to add that to them. Again, Kemp, I can see you shaking your head. I think the money
£65 million a lot.
No, I completely agree. I'm saying the money that they've spent, I think, is too much. They've spent too much on him, and it's the similar sort of thing to what I said
Aggie,
about.
just a quick question for just to loop it into your answer to this. But we're talking about 65 million being a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Surely we're not far off that becoming the norm now for that level of player.
Well, yeah, I can see the argument for that. I don't like that we could be coming towards that, but I think for the little impact that Havertz has had since he's come to the Premier League, I still think 65, if Chelsea are asking for that amount, you've got to turn around and say, no, you're going to look elsewhere. But I like the fact that they're looking towards depth. The thing that's really getting me is Arsenal just aren't a side that's known for spending money. They've just spent £65 million on Havertz. They're still looking at Timber. They're still looking at Declan Rice. And we know that both of those players are going to be quite expensive. So it looks like Arsenal are throwing everything at it for this season. If I remember rightly, I think Kemp said to me last week that he felt that Chelsea were going to finish above Arsenal this upcoming season. Is that correct? I'm sure you did.
I believe he did say that.
I know he did.
He said he was expecting this team to do well. This team to do well. He can't see Arsenal.
I'm expecting.
Top 4, I'm
expecting. Yeah. So I think my words potentially were, and I'm happy to be corrected. I see Chelsea more of a chance of reaching top 4 this next season than Arsenal, and that's will finish above them as well. And I stick to that as well.
And that's better then. But I know Chelsea obviously are offloading a lot of players. I think Arsenal, if they make the right business, they are still going to be contenders with City. I think, like you've already said, if Timber does come in, if they can try and prize Declan Rice away from Manchester City, if that's even possible, then that's going to be a huge step in the right direction for them. And with Havertz, I don't think they really need to look for too much afterwards. I think those 3 signings will put them in a very good position to be competitive with City next season. But it's a big ask because it's getting Timber to join Arsenal. It's getting Rice now that Man City have openly said that they're interested in signing him. Declan Rice, if you've got the choice between Arsenal and Man City, I'm pretty sure every one of us here would sit there and say, we're going to sign for Man City and we're going to play for Pep Guardiola.
Absolutely, and time will tell with the Rice saga there. Arsenal are really, really pushing him, and City are apparently sniffing around the subject. But Sam, we're going to stick with City as we close off the transfer rumours and signings. But official business from Man City this week: Ilkay Gundogan, phenomenal. He's been pivotal in the last couple of seasons, scoring the double against Aston Villa a couple of years ago to help them win the title on the last day, scoring in the FA Cup final, captaining the side as well, in major games in that treble run. Has moved to Barcelona, 2-year deal, release clause of 500 million, which don't see the point of that, but and they've pretty much instantly replaced him with Mateo Kovacic from Chelsea. So, what do you think that will mean to City? Do you think losing Gundogan and that kind of leader and that player that stepped up in big moments, do you think that will be a big loss for City, or are they just that much of an elite squad that they won't really notice it?
I think it'll be a big loss. Like you say, he scored some absolutely pivotal goals, especially this season. And you're looking at that FA Cup goal. What a goal, by the way. I think it's criminal that he's been let go for nothing. You'd have thought they'd have managed to get at least a 1-year contract out of him, so they could sell him on for even if it's 20 million or something like that. But to let him go for nothing, I thought they've missed a trick there. Kovacic, good replacement, very very solid player. Still pretty young, I think. What was it, about 24, 25-ish. So yeah, he's certainly on the up, but I think it's a big miss myself. And like I mentioned earlier, if hypothetically Bernardo Silva then leaves, and this City team doesn't become quite the same team, and who knows? But yeah, it's not bad business overall. I would have liked to have seen City get a fee for him.
Do you not think Pep Guardiola's earned the benefit of the doubt? I mean, a lot of people when Aguero left thought, "Oh God, Aguero's left. Where are all the goals going to come from now?" And they won the league.
They did. They did, but he still addressed the fact that they didn't have that. De Bruyne was playing in a false nine for a lot of that season.
Yeah, but we also had the João Cancelo thing where fell out with Pep, got rid of him halfway through the season. He was City's probably arguably the best player, not the season gone, but the season before, and they still managed to win 2 Premier League titles in a row on the spin. I understand what you're saying, Sam, and I completely agree. But for me, if I'm a City fan, I'm not too worried because I think Pep and the City team and the recruitment team at Man City are shrewd enough to see that, Gundogan, that's a massive, massive miss. But also, he's not gone for a transfer fee, which I think, they have missed a bit of a trick there. But the wages that'll have freed up, that there'll be a lot of wages there that they can spend on somebody else. And I think Pep, if anybody in the Premier League's earned the benefit of the doubt with that sort of thing, I think it's Pep Guardiola. So I see where you're coming from, but if I'm a City fan, I don't think I'm too concerned about it, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair comment.
It is fair, and again, as always, time will tell. But I think that's pretty much enough. It's been a bit of a whirlwind week in the transfer world, especially with Saudi Arabia, sort of pushing the weight about. But again, this time next week, anything could have happened. Rice could have moved. Manchester United could have finally signed Mount or anyone. So episode 55, I'm sure, will bring plenty of discussion again. Before we close off the football section, and it has been pretty lengthy tonight, I think it's worth acknowledging the fact that in this last week it was announced that Martin Tyler, the lead Sky Sports and Premier League commentator, is to be leaving Sky Sports, and probably the bigger news from a fan's perspective is to be replaced by Peter Drury, the absolute epitome of a football commentator. I know, Sam, to be fair, starting from that Porto game many years ago, probably started the Tyler's getting a bit. Probably started the bandwagon before anyone else, if I'm being honest. Not to toot our own horn, but we've been on his case ever since that very moment, many years ago. But
what was that, 08? Was that 08?
Probably not far off. You're probably looking
at the season they won the Champions League, 08?
Possibly. I think it was in the knockouts, weren't it? But jokes and negativity aside, and the fact that you lads would have noticed Sky Sports put a goal. Sky Sports put that didn't sound right. I feel like I got it right, but it didn't sound right. Sky Sports would put a clip of a goal from Super Sunday on Twitter, and the comments would be, Tyler's passed it, why is it so boring? That would be the majority of the comments, and that's certainly been the case over the last couple of seasons. But Martin Tyler commentating Collymore back in the 90s, that late winner against Newcastle, of course, the Aguero you know,
I think that was it. I think that was his final great act, wasn't it? The Aguero moment, and to be fair, it's immortalised that moment. It's gone down in history. But yeah, I mean, we follow that guy on TikTok, don't we? Who mouths Tyler, and then he's like rolling his eyes whenever Liverpool score. Oh, Salah!
The guy's nearly 18, and I think you know, for as much as a lot of people have said, look, you know, it's not ruining it, but we're noticing that it's bad. And as much as me and you have been on that bandwagon probably before 90% of people, you know, he has been at the forefront and the voice of a lot of incredible moments over the years. And Peter Drury, look, I've not really watched Super Sunday much, other than if United are playing, I'm watching it. Other than that, I'm not. But knowing now Peter Drury is going to be a part. What I think you said it, Sam. What a statement of intent in terms of, you know, Prime coming in and really getting involved in the football scene, and a lot of people talking about binning it off and getting streaming services in so you can watch 3 p.m. kickoffs and things like that. Like it's a massive upgrade, and it's got to get you excited as a football fan into next year, knowing that Peter Drury is going to be the one, not having to find American coverage and think we're not getting into ways you can do that, but you know, you can stick your telly on and right at the click of a button. You know, probably the top commentator in the world is going to be commentating on the games that you're going to have access to the most.
Absolutely.
Adam, as the man that is the commentator, you know, you've always mentioned John Motson as your hero. Have you got any words on the fact that Martin Tyler, again, you know, is the voice of a generation, and he is nearly 80, so let's give him some credit. Have you got any words that you want to give him as he steps aside and enjoys retirement?
Not really to him directly. No, he's obviously been great for the seasons that he's done.
He's not listening, mate.
You what? Sorry.
He's not.
That's what you were saying. Like,
is it Discord? Is it Discord? Have you seen?
In Discord ready? No, but like it's time to move on to the next generation, isn't it? Obviously, Motson had his prime, and then now Tyler's had his prime, and it's just time to move on to the next generation. And Drury, like you've already said, you've both already pointed out on many of occasions, he is the next generation. So it's a great signing for Sky Sports, and I dare say the signing of the season.
That's I think you said that, Sam, didn't you? It was a signing of the season, so it is. I think he's nicked that off you.
Yeah, that's all right. I can have that one.
Mr. Mr. Piggyback accusing people.
I mean, it was me that said it, but okay.
G-Nev, co-commentator.
Yeah, we'll have to get on the Discord. But hey, we never know. Martin Tyler might have actually taken a big bag from Saudi Arabia to commentate on their league. Who knows? It'll all come out, I'm sure, if that's
definitely
the case.
Not watching Saudi Pro League now, then.
No, absolutely
God, can
not.
you imagine that? Can you imagine Tyler with Andy Gray and Richard Keys again?
That's a terrible trio, isn't it?
They're not part of the world these days, aren't they?
Yeah, they are being sports all day, every day. Just to give an honourable mention, and I completely agree with what you've made, the points that you've made about Martin Tyler and Peter Drury. For me, Drury best in the game right now over anybody else. I think it's quite comfortable to say. I can see Sam Cogswearing with Clyde Tilsley just racking round his head, but no, Peter Drury is the best in the game for me, and Martin Tyler over the past couple of seasons has potentially been one of the worst. So I think it's a great bait and switch for Sky Sports. Honourable mention though, however, I think Martin Tyler's best call was G to Sessegnon to G. He's round the goalkeeper and he's done it. That was unbelievable.
No, yeah, that's up there. Yeah, that's up there.
That is number one for me. That's number one for me.
That was brilliant. Awesome. But I don't want to speak for Sam. So Sam, once I've said this, please correct me if you don't agree. But Kempy, you mentioned about Clive there. I personally feel I was aggrieved by the fact that he had been replaced by Sam Matterface. But now I know he's getting some of that Amazon money. I'm at peace with it because he's secured the bag and it's well deserved. So I'm at peace with what Clive's doing in his career now. But yeah, I'm all good with that one. But lads, that's football. I mean, we've probably been talking for close to an hour, and that's just a week's worth. So no idea what the
just a peek behind the curtain to quote Kempy. I feel like we say that more than him these days.
I'm going to say I've not said it in about 6 months.
Stop saying that.
It's one of them where you start to say it ironically, and then you just saying it.
It's pure Mandela effect, isn't it? He never said it actually.
Yeah.
It's just
it was Adam.
Yeah, I've completely forgot what I was going to say now. What was I going to? What did you
Was
just
it
say?
gonna
Oh,
be?
yeah. So,
I know what you're gonna. I know what you're gonna say. Yeah, go on.
yeah. So what I was going to say with peek behind the curtain is a couple of months back we were all prepping in the chat about what we're gonna do over the summer months. Are we going to have to play games, or what we're going to have to talk about? But as you say, we've just lasted over an hour talking about transfers and just shooting the shit. So yeah, I think we're doing quite well on that front.
I'll say all right. Once say that July, it's really going to be rolling. In August, it'll be about time to do our predictions and stuff. So I think we'll be fine. But again, time will tell. So yeah, that's football. And this time next week, who knows what will have happened? But Adam, I'm gonna come to you, mate. Actually, no, I'm not. Kemp, I'm gonna come to you. Actually, I think cricket. Now, I know you did a very, very brief mention / preview of the upcoming Ashes series, and the first test is out the way. Day one started with a very attacking, very positive, very offensive England performance, putting up almost 400 runs at around 5 runs and over, which you don't often see in Test cricket. Really putting themselves in a position where you assume that England were going to take that first test and get the front foot on the Ashes series. And then day 5 came. Looked like you're probably looking at the draw. The game didn't start until around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock that afternoon because of the weather. England started out fantastically, got 7 wickets, and it looked like, hang on a minute, England are going to go 1-0 up here. And then it just kind of stalled, and Australia, led by the captain, chipped away at the runs and secured the win and have gone 1-0 up. But it was a brief mention. I know you lads spoke in the chat about not knowing too much about cricket, but felt like it needed mentioning. But Kemp, you did watch a lot of that first test. So going from someone that might not have really had too much of an involvement in Test cricket, especially, you mentioned about your love of T20 and 100, but you said about that, Test cricket you weren't really a fan of. So from your perspective of having that introduction and seeing how it went on, what are your thoughts about how the first test went down?
Yeah, it was exciting. It was really good. It was probably the most entertaining test cricket sort of first game I think I've ever seen. Baseball is what they call English cricket these days. The English team declaring after the first innings, after 393 runs to 8 wickets. After that, Australia obviously came into bat. I think we were expecting to declare and take that momentum and get a couple of early wickets and really put them under the cosh. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. That is the way that we play football these days. I get that. I understand cricket these days. I get that. Sam's distracting me by sending me showing lewd pictures on the screen. So apologies for that little the Freudian slip there. I've been talking about football for about 3 hours, so I'm still stuck on it. But yeah, that's the way that England play cricket these days. I get it, but I think it was a bit of a mistake. 393 runs against an Australia team that's capable of doing some damage. I think we could have potentially sort of kept going until we were all out for topping that 400 run mark and giving Australia a really big mountain to climb. Australia then came in and scored 368, which sort of, like you say there, Dawson, gave England a lead of 7 runs going into the second innings, which is obviously a really, really close game. A lot of people thinking that England were a shoo-in after that first innings and that we were really going to really kick on and get a fantastic set of runs after our second test, but second innings. But unfortunately, that wasn't to be. England out for 273 runs in the end, and Australia had a target of 281, and they got the victory. 1-0 lead in the series, 5 matches, and Sam's got exactly what he wanted there, and then Australia got exactly what they wanted with a 1-0 victory so far. Dawson, how did you sum up that first test and those first innings? I really, really enjoyed it, and I feel like you did as well, but a little bit disappointed of the result, as we all are as England fans, of course.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad you said that, mate, because one of the things you've always spoke about, I say always, over sort of maybe the last couple of years especially, is, you don't like Test cricket. It's not for you. You prefer the shorter format. And I mentioned it, I think, at the start of this test, of the fact that I've always preferred Test cricket. The memories of that 05 series is incredible. I used to have the DVD. It was like a 4 DVD box set of basically the highlights of that 2005 Ashes series, which honestly was absolutely incredible. Catching highlights throughout the day at school, watching it when they got home, you know, and the Test series, and it's the reason why they brought in the 100. It's the reason why T20 has become, you know, a bigger part of the game, is because they've thought that Test cricket hasn't really got the longevity that it once had because of how long it lasts. But there's kind of a feeling to it that's so hard to explain. So it was good to see someone like yourself that, as mentioned before, not being a fan of Test cricket, you know, voice your opinion on preferring the shorter format of the game, to have really enjoyed that. So yeah, it was really, really good to see. Day 5, that last couple of hours where it was topsy-turvy, England heavy favourites, and then slowly Australia sort of, you know, chipped away at it, and it got to the point with maybe about 15 overs left where, right, this isn't going to be a draw, which is great because you don't want to see that. Australia probably going to win, but if England get a wicket in the next, I don't know, 10, 12, 20 balls, there's a chance. So it's just that, for me, is that feeling of Test cricket, that anything can happen at any time. So that, for me, it was just that little inkling of why I've always preferred Test cricket. So, Kemp, I'll be honest, I'm really glad that you got a little sampling of that feeling. Hopefully, you know, Australia are now 1-0 up, but hopefully over the next 4 tests, you'll be able to achieve that again at some point along the way. Because, yeah, for me, Test cricket is the pinnacle of cricket because of what it can give you. But Aggie, I'm going to come to you now, mate. Formula One, Canada Grand Prix. Tell you what, I'm a Red Bull fan and I should be buzzing, but from someone that, you know, wants to watch entertaining races, because what's the point otherwise? It's tough at the minute, and I feel bad because you know, as we're doing a podcast about sport, you want to be excited, and you know, we got excited about the cricket, we've been really engaged about the football, but Formula One at the minute feels like it's kind of the sore thumb of all the sports that we talk about.
Yeah, you picked the most boring bloke that this podcast has to offer to speak about the most boring sport that this podcast has to talk about. Yeah, Red Bull now 8 wins in 8. Another canter victory for Max Verstappen, who just waltzed his way around the track. I think he got the joke at one point that he'd nearly knocked himself out from driving over a curb, that he was that far ahead from everybody else. Then you'd got Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton having a nice little battle for second place, but that's all it's been for the most of the season, hasn't it? Just 2 cars battling for second place. Nobody's really been able to compete up there with Max Verstappen, including his teammate Sergio Perez. He's got a nice 69-point lead now at the top. We've got 2 weeks until Austria.
Oh!
There we go. And the best part of it is just looking forward to that battle between Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. Mercedes have improved the car, but it's only enough now to compete with the Aston Martins. That's about as good as it's going to get. So you're right. It's difficult to be able to sit here and really sum up the entertainment aspect of it when the majority of it is just pretty much deja vu, isn't it? Max Verstappen getting pole position, Max Verstappen winning the race, and it's something that we've seen over the last couple of years on a more than regular basis. Hopefully next season Mercedes will be able to compete a little bit better. It looks like Lewis Hamilton is going to be sticking around for longer, and Toto Wolff's already said that he thinks they're going to have a very strong car for next season, but that's something that Mercedes have always kind of said to keep other teams kind of off their backs, isn't it?
Wolff off his Gladiators, brother.
Yeah, that's the one.
Just on the back of that, just from someone who is a complete, as I say, nonce from last week, complete novice.
Right, can I just, because I wasn't a part of the episode, and so let me give you. I've been in London, right, for the Thursday, Friday. I'm travelling back, and I thought, right, I'm going to have a listen. The episode's about 1 hour 40. Train was like 1 hour 56, so it's perfect, isn't it? Honestly, I'm sat there, I'm listening, I'm enjoying it. I'm eating my pasta that I'd got from the station, and Sangre, some that's an absolute nonce to this. Honestly, I fucking full carriage, burst out fucking pissing myself. And I had these headphones on as well. So bear in mind, I'm sat in, imagine me sat in the train seat, absolutely fucking gone. Like whoever was sat near me must have thought whatever he's listening to is fucking brilliant.
It's probably the funniest. It's probably the funniest moment on Loaded Sport so far.
I'll tell you what.
I wish there was a camera on me about how much I laughed at that because I was fucking gone.
We're thinking about putting a new intro in. I don't want to see that fucker anywhere near the intro, to be honest with you. But yeah, what I'm going to say is an absolute novice, obviously, with the rumours that Lewis Hamilton could potentially go to Red Bull. Surely that would just make F1 even worse and even more dull. If Max Verstappen's got a number 2 in Lewis Hamilton, surely it's game over for everyone else.
Absolutely.
Well, the boring answer, I suppose, is it's not happening, is it? Surely not. Adam, please, like for me, that's a shot. That will never, ever, ever. I'll go, Kemp. I'll put my mortgage on it. I ain't got a mortgage, but I'll put Tommy on it. Like it's not happening.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
that.
Yeah,
That's a big statement.
I don't think he'll ever go to Red Bull. I think if he ever leaves Mercedes, it's going to be to go back to McLaren, or it's going to be to move on to Ferrari. I think they're really the only two options that he's going to have. But I think you'll see out his career with Mercedes. I think that gives him the best opportunity to go on and win the record-breaking 8th World Championship. Max Verstappen, of course, at the moment is going to try and get as close to that as possible. If them two end up teammates, I could just see it just being like a dramatic fall from Red Bull. I know they both have two very fast cars, but they'll not be able to work alongside each other. That's something that you need in Formula One, and Perez is doing that well to assist Verstappen as best as he can. And Lewis Hamilton's had that from teammates in the past to help him get to where he is.
And on the back of that, what is your thoughts on Aston Martin?
That's the question he's put in the chat. And that's
anyway, let's move on this week.
Look forward to previewing Austria next week. I don't know where we're going from here. Does anybody have a running order? What's the plan from here?
Wilson's gone. So he's not been here for the last 3 weeks, and he's gone again now. So well done.
Well, I could have been here every minute of every day, and I wouldn't have been prepared for that. So it don't matter either way. But yeah, you're right. It's unfortunate. I saw some at the start of the season mention that Red Bull wouldn't see the effects of the fines that they got until the second half of the season. So maybe in the second half of the season we'll see things improve from a wanting to see an exciting race perspective, but. I suppose we won't know until we get there. But like you said, Adam, no race this weekend. Austria is next weekend, so we'll preview that next week. And then Silverstone is the week after that. So we'll have a couple of previews coming up in future episodes. But again, even as a Red Bull fan, I don't even... if it was Lewis Hamilton and we were talking to Gaz, he'd be absolutely buzzing about it, wouldn't he? But I
think the only way that they can try and make this any fairer is actually input the penalties that they've threatened. So they brought in the financial fair play equivalent in Formula One. Red Bull have broken it, and the FIA have done pretty similar to what the FA are going to be doing with Man City, and they've taken it very leniently, which means they've managed to pretty much get away with it, still walk out as champions. And they need to make sure that if they're putting that in to make it more entertaining and more competitive, if teams aren't adhering to it, then they're going to have to kind of back that up, haven't they? And put in some sort of, I don't even know what the word is.
Well, they've tried that, haven't they? They've tried to put certain regulations in place to not necessarily make it more even, but influence or encourage, I suppose, overtaking and things like that. But it's not leveling the playing field. It's if anything, it's increased it. And I can't remember who I said it to recently, but it just seems like always there's one person dominating and then someone just behind it. At a minute, it's just someone. I think it was Gaz, because we were saying, you never had an issue when it was Lewis and Mercedes dominating, and now it's Red Bull and Max. There's an issue, but I honestly do not, unless there's equal cars, what are you going to do? It's tough, but Kemp, I am going to come to you this time again for, we just spoke about cricket, but golf, another major has come. It is that time of year, the second official major of the year, the US Open. Talk us through it, my friend. What did you see? What did you enjoy? Who surprised you? Who disappointed you? And what are your thoughts on what happened over in the US?
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, the Los Angeles Country Club hosted the US Open for the 2023 US Open. Prize money of $20 million, Adam. I always say that to you every single time we talk about prize money for golf, Adam. How much would you love to be winning the US Open this year, Adam? How much would you love to be on that podium?
All right, what's with the constant name? What's going on? Have I missed a trick here or something?
No, I don't know if you remember last time we talked about a golf major. I asked you how buzzing you'd be to win the prize money. I think it was $30 million, that last one. I think it was the Masters. And this one's $20 million. So have you picked your golf clubs up recently, Adam, and had a swing and hopefully going to get to that $20 million in a few years' time?
He's always swinging, mate. That's why he's not open with us about what he's doing at weekend.
No, I play a bit of golf. I'm just nowhere near any of that stuff. I'm not near your guys' standard, to be fair, either. So,
Oh, mate, it wouldn't be difficult to be near my standard at the moment. But the standard was very, very high at the US Open, with Wyndham Clark winning the US Open, and a surprise to a lot of people that he did win the US Open this week, or this last week. Rory McIlroy once again falling just short. Dawson, Rory McIlroy once again couldn't break his major duck, couldn't get that one over the line in the end, and he was just peering over the winner's circle as Sam's peering over the top of his camera. So Dawson, Rory McIlroy falling short once again. How gutted must he be this week?
Gutted, mate. We're not too far off of 10 years, are we, since a major win for Rory? So. Yeah, he's been in and around it. I think he was one shot behind come the end of the weekend. Wyndham Clark, I think, is 32nd ranked in the world. Came a little bit out of nowhere, but yeah, Rory is right up there in terms of favourites and in the discussions pre-tournament every single time it comes around. So yeah, no doubt he would have been gutted. But what can you do? You move on to, I believe it's the Open next month, isn't it? So it's over here. And Kemp, I'll very quickly just related to golf, but slightly, a question that I always talk to about Adam, with the F1 calendar, there's races all across the world, night races, day races, and everything like that. Some days you're going to get, or some races, you're going to get a race at 6 a.m. Some races, like the Las Vegas race later in the year, November, is going to be at 6 a.m. our time. Some races, like the Canada Grand Prix that's just happened, is at 7 p.m. our time. So as a golf fan, Los Angeles, like you mentioned, tee times were well late into the evening and the night. Next month, the Open over here, tee times at 6 in the morning. So as a fan, as a watcher of golf, do you prefer, you've started your day, you've worked through the day, you put your feet up and you watch your golf late at night, or are you a fan of, it's on through the day while you're going about your business, or I suppose more specifically over the weekend, you've got your day to put your feet up and watch what's happening? What do you prefer as a golf fan?
For me, I prefer playing golf first thing in the morning, and I prefer watching golf first thing in the morning. I think it makes for better viewing. I think the surface can be a little bit more unpredictable. They've had that overnight period where it might be a little bit wetter, a little bit drier than they're potentially predicting. So I do prefer to watch it first thing in the morning with a cup of coffee, get my feet up, and get stuck into some golf. And with me watching the UFC for how many years I've watched it, I'm used to watching sports at silly times if I'm interested enough. But the broadcasters are always going to do what they need to do, and the US Open's always going to be on at a perfect time for that New York and that Los Angeles audience. So it is what it is on that respect. But yeah, going back to the actual event itself, Ricky Fowler. Wow, that first round from Ricky Fowler was something to behold. Record breaking, I think it was. It was the, what was it? It was the 62, I think he ended up on that one. And it was 8 under par in the end. So obviously at the end of that first round. So yeah, it was unbelievable from Ricky Fowler. He got off to an unbelievable start. Not a lot of people were thinking that he was going to be in a position where he was leading the way so convincingly after that first round. But then unfortunately just fell away towards the back end. But what an unbelievable, memorable first round for Ricky Fowler, and one that he'll not forget in a long time. Usual suspects were up there in the end. Scotty Scheffler, you've got your John Rahms and your Xander Schauffele's tied 10th. Tommy Fleetwood up there as well. Nice to see him getting himself back into the sort of top 5. That's always nice to see for an Englishman like Tommy Fleetwood. But unfortunately, Matt Fitzpatrick did end up on tied 17th at even par, so level par. So that was a little bit disappointing in the end. But hey ho, what can you do? But yeah, Wyndham Clark finishing the entire event on 10 under par. Unbelievable performance from him over the course of the weekend. Really consistent and steady golf, and then really peaked towards the back end of the tournament, which you used to see Tiger Woods do back in the day. Not comparing Wyndham Clark to Tiger Woods in any way, but it's
you just did, mate. You just did.
Well,
That's
there
exactly
you go. No pressure, kid. No pressure, kid. But yeah, it was really good to see that. And you know what? When you've got a seasoned elder statesman, which is what Rory McIlroy is now, he's seen as the leader of the PGA Tour. You know, he hosts all the meetings for the PGA. He's really close, and he's got that leadership mentality. And when he's breathing down your neck as closely as he is, And obviously, if you're not familiar with the format of golf, the sort of top 3 players or the top 2 players or however many it might be, they'll all play together on the last day, and obviously the winner the winner takes it all, as ABBA once famously said. But when you've got Rory McIlroy breathing down your neck, it's never easy. But Wyndham Clark showed the real true professionalism of a fantastic world-class golfer, and deserved his $20 million prize purse. So the US Open, a fantastic weekend of golf. Los Angeles Country Club did not make it easy. I think there was a 260-yard or 250-yard par 3 in there, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I think
how many do you reckon you do that in?
I was just about to say, probably about 9. I think is a close estimation as to how I'd get on with that one. But
that's fair.
But yeah, no, it's interesting. We've got the Travellers Championship taking place this weekend at TPC Highlands. That's not obviously as high a stakes, and it's obviously not one of the majors. But there's if you are a big golf fan, obviously we'd love to discuss it in the Discord chat with yourself that we've just set up, and more details about that will be coming to you at the end of the show. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, what's everybody else's thoughts on it, and what did everybody think to the Los Angeles Country Club as a course? Because to be honest with you, there's a few bucket list courses. There's Augusta, there's St Andrews. That one ain't on it. It looked pretty brutal. So I'll leave that one to the pros.
Yeah, definitely, mate. And like you mentioned, I was going to bring in the Travellers Championship. It's not a major, but it is one of the more recognised sort of tournaments outside of the Big Four. Keegan Bradley, an absolutely phenomenal first round, 8 under. He's hit 9 birdies and a solitary bogey to put himself right at the top as the outright leader. Is there anyone sort of going into the tournament? Denny McCarthy, I mentioned last week as my sort of US Open tip. He's gone 6 under after 10. What a phenomenal start. So I think warranting the mention from me last week, and over 100 to 1 odds to win the US Open. I think he finished tied 21st, which grand scheme of things was a really good performance. And like I said, he tied second, 6 under after just 10 holes. Is there anyone that you've got your eye on as a potential fancy or someone to keep an eye on in this weekend?
Well, how can you not say Keegan Bradley after this first round? He's had an unbelievable first round, like you said, mentioned there, 9 birdies and 1 bogey. It's a scorecard to die for, that one is. I can potentially see Shane Lowry rolling back the years. He's second on 6 under par, tied second on 6 under par at the moment. And I think he might just have that little bit of experience to take him through to the end. But for me, Shane Lowry or Patrick Cantley. Patrick Cantley is on 5 under par at the moment. Might be my 2 picks. And Keegan Bradley doing unbelievably well. Fantastic first round so far. But as we've already discussed with Ricky Fowler, if you don't get off to a good footing on that 2nd and 3rd round, it can come back to bite you very, very quickly. So again, in the Discord chat, anybody watching the Travellers Championship this weekend, let's have a conversation about it in there, and let's get some predictions going.
Yeah, definitely. And just because you're leading after 1 round doesn't mean that you're going to be leading after 4, and that's certainly the case going into the weekend. But Sam, darts. This time last year wasn't on your radar as a sport that you liked. Christmas came, feet up, enjoying the time off, dipping your toe into the World Championship final. Oh, I suppose Christmas, it was after New Year. The greatest leg in darts there ever was and never probably will be. I mean, literally and officially, I don't suppose it can be bettered, but 2023 is the year in which you've really invested yourself in darts, both playing and watching as a fan. And your first experience of the World Cup and the doubles format and everything else. So talk us through. Wales are the winners. Wales lift the trophy. They take it off Australia. You as a fan, what is your impression and what is your opinion of the first ever World Cup of darts that you experienced?
Yeah, and my first ever doubles format in anything to do with darts. So yeah, that was an eye opener. Going in, looking at Michael Smith, world number 1, you're thinking, well, that's already a massive leg up on the competition. And then you mentioned it Sunday night when they got knocked out. It doesn't matter how good you are. That format does not suit Michael Smith at all. He's a rhythm player. He's quick. Aggie mentioned a couple of months back, he actually annoys Aggie how seems a bit careless when he's throwing him. It's just bang, bang, bang in the board. Normally someone's going, he's right back at the board at it again, and he's keeping that rhythm constantly. And yeah, you could tell that format does not suit him at all. And Rob Cross, whoever, well, I know he was the next ranking one behind Michael Smith, but that ranking system has to change because he was fucking awful. He was absolutely awful. We'll start just covering quickly the quarterfinals. I'm going to skip the group stage and round 16. So quarterfinals was where England actually lost to the host 8-3 Germany. Germany was absolutely unbelievable, to be fair to them. The pairing just complemented themselves. Clemens and I can't think of his name. Anyone, Aggie, you want to jump in at all? I don't know if you is it. No, it's lost me. But yeah, they genuinely ain't it. And just covering Scotland as well, they obliterated France 8-0, whitewashed them in their quarterfinal. Belgium beat Australia 8-7 in probably the game of the quarterfinal.
Germany was Gabriel Clemens and Martin Schindler.
And it was something I couldn't think of. Yeah, Schindler, that's the one. Yes, the Belgium-Australia game was absolutely incredible. To be fair, it went right down to the wire, 8-7 to Belgium. Obviously, Simon Whitlock and Hette gave Van der Berg and I can't pronounce the other guy's name. Gave him a run from. I'm sure Ken probably jump in at some point and tell me.
Huybrechts.
That's the one, yeah. But yeah, you know what? Actually, shout out to Van den Berg because I know Skin is always the first one to give him a bit of a stick. But for me, he was actually one of the players of the tournament. It was absolutely unshakable at times. It was just so smooth at the board. Maybe the doubles format just suits him down to the ground because he were very below middle of the road in the Premier League. So maybe a slower format just suited him down to the ground. I thought he was absolutely tremendous, to be honest. And then, to round out the quarterfinals, Wales beat Sweden 8-5. Another closer than perhaps first thought going into it. Wales, obviously, were the team to beat at this point onwards. And Sweden, to be fair, held their own, pushed them all the way, but 8-5 winners in the end. And then,
Sweden unseeded. Dennis Nilsson and Oskar Lukasiak.
His name's coming, mate.
Unseeded. Nobody expected him to do anything. A much lower ranked nation in terms of the darts, and gave Wales a real good run for the money. Sam, you're absolutely spot on there, and not one that I expected to see. But I think in tournaments like this, I don't know if you'll agree, but I think a closer game than you expected there. I don't think it was too close, but a closer game than you expected. Does that kind of shock you and think, right, okay, come on now, we could get beat here by anybody. We really need to step up and sharpen our game, and maybe that's what led to Wales potentially getting the victory in the end. You don't know.
You're probably right there. And I think England, Germany was the last up of the quarterfinals. So I think the Germans just, especially the crowd, sat there quietly simmering away up until that final quarterfinal, and it was very loud. Every time Michael Smith went up, they were giving him shit, they were booing him. And he just couldn't find that rhythm at all. And Rob Cross, I've never ever seen anybody's stance so unorthodox in all of darts. It just looked like he was off balance every time he threw it. He got his elbow up here, his non-throwing elbow up here. It just looked so unnatural.
I feel like that's just on that point, because that's something you've picked up again as a relatively new fan, and something that I've always felt hasn't quite worked with Smith and Cross as a partner. Smith is very fast-paced, bang, 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 bang. You mentioned about his, how he quickly works out where he needs to go, and he just, And Cross is very much like if he's got a 3-dart checkout, hits the first, hits the second, he takes a minute and he steps back. And I do think part of that leads into the fact of his stance if he needs to kind of reset himself and readjust. Completely with you on that, and the fact that you've picked that as a relative novice. To darts and only just got into it over the last 6 months. Completely agree. I just wanted to say that from someone that's watching more for longer. 100% agree with that.
Yeah, it's just very unnatural. I don't know why his non-throwing elbow was that eye open. He's like leaning forward. It's every throw just like you're about one pushed in his back. It'd be on the floor. It would look like that. And you're always wanting to obviously have firm feet planted as you throw and get that power and accuracy. But moving on to the semi-finals, obviously Wales then went on to beat Belgium. Van der Berg, as I say, again in that game, it was absolutely tremendous. But Johnny Clayton and the Iceman just had a bit too much for them. I can't remember which game it was. I've got a feeling it was the quarterfinals. I think Johnny Clayton was way off it. It just wasn't good at all.
It was the quarterfinals because I properly started watching the semis, and that's where he stepped up. So it was definitely the quarters.
Yeah, the semi-finals. I think he finished with an average of something like 113. I think, and it was just absolutely mind blowing. And he then carried him Price over the finish line into the final. So fair play. That's obviously why he's there. So And that's why you need to strengthen your number 2 man, as I mentioned in the previous show. Scotland did what England should have done and beat Germany 8-5. Good performance from Peter Wright and Gary Anderson. It's good to see Gary Anderson back. Obviously, I'm saying that I never really was watching it.
It's my favourite of all time.
Yeah, and I can kind of see why. I've seen him. He's got a bit cheeky, isn't he? He's doesn't really give a shit what he's saying. He has to watch what he's saying in a lot of interviews. He swears a lot, and yeah, he's a bit of me in that aspect.
I'll show you a link after this because I know Kemp don't like him purely for his Scottish, but the whole Fartgate thing of like
I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it. Very funny.
Do you know what? No, I don't like Gary Anderson. It's not because he's Scottish, but I just me personally, I don't really like him in some of the interviews I've seen and stuff like that. But do you know what, Sam? Before you started watching darts, start of this year, a couple of years ago, I think I mentioned to you before, Gary Anderson was the man to beat. He was the man of the hour who was too sweet to be sour at that point in time.
Yeah, a couple of back injuries and stuff like that, and you know,
can imagine
his eyesight went. He would. I think he come second in the World Championships once and said, "Oh, I couldn't see anything." I mean, if that's how good you are, because when you can't see anything, then bloody hell, get a pair of glasses and off you go.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of clips of the the Glasgow Premier League. Is it Glasgow? Yeah, it is.
Aberdeen.
Aberdeen, sorry, Aberdeen. Of course, it is Aberdeen Premier League, and it's just the atmosphere looks absolutely unbelievable every time he was on. So yeah, I'd like to see him back in the Premier League at some point if he can do that. But semi-final rounds out with Wales demolishing. Oh no, that was the final. Sorry, I'm reading it out there. So yeah, the semi-final was obviously Wales 8, Belgium 7, Scotland 8, Germany 5, and then the final was just a bit of a damp squid, I must admit. So we've built up, and Scotland were looking quite likely and quite tasty, and then in the final, Peter Wright just fell apart. And Gary Anderson, to be fair, he didn't play too bad. I know they've only won 2 legs there, but he didn't. He was definitely the player between the two of them. But yeah, Wales were just on form, both of them firing all cylinders, and it was a pretty short wait for them in the end.
Yeah, it definitely was. And Sam and Kemp, credit to you for predicting Wales last week on episode 53. And Sam, I mentioned it in chat, but to put it on the record for everyone watching, is that I think it was one of your best points you've ever made about any sport, was the fact that the strength of that second player, that backup player, was more important than the strength of the first. And well, it paid off for Wales in the end, didn't it? So you were absolutely right with that. But Adam, as someone that, you know, unfortunately, mate, you were the odd one out. You did back England, whether that was a bit of heart overhead. You've mentioned before that you are a fan of Rob Cross. I've mentioned before that I'm not that much of a fan. He came out of nowhere and won the World Championship. But is there potential now? I know the World Cup isn't going to be another 2 years away, but do you have to start looking at an Aspinall? Do you have to start looking at Luke Humphries, who is currently 5th ranked in the world? You know, is it time to sort of break that current partnership up and look towards the future to get them over that hurdle?
Yeah, I think Luke Humphries was a bit unfortunate not to have made it into the Premier League this year. So I'd like to have seen him in place of Rob Cross. I know I was a fan of Rob Cross anyway. I just think he's lost a little bit from where he was when he won that World Championship. I know you said he came from nowhere, but he performed really well to take that championship then, and he really shown a lot of promise for himself for his career. But it looks like it was just a one-off thing for him, and I think you need to split up him and Smith. I think there were times where he were making some throws that you could see Smith in the background disappointed with those throws that were being made, and that's not really what you need from a team. So you need 2 people that are going to be on the same page, and I think Humphries would be able to complement Smith's style quite nicely, and I think the two of them would be able to work quite well together. But like Sam's already said, he thinks with Smith having that fast pace, it does irritate me, but at the same time, he's very quick with it and he's very precise with it. So it's one of them things, it's more jealousy than anything that he can do it. But when you look at that sort of format, he's then got to wait for 3 more people to throw darts before he can go up again. He's at some points lost a little bit of his rhythm at that point. So I don't think it necessarily suits him. I wouldn't say go as far as replacing him, but I think Rob Cross certainly needs replacing before the next doubles tournament or World Cup.
It's tough because, you know, there's been arguments in the past like Van Gerwen and Suljovic, and Van Gerwen is a very fast-paced player, and playing like a player like Suljovic, who's very slow, that halts the rhythm. So I suppose it's a very different conversation when it's doubles and your partner is a bit of a slow-paced player. That must affect your game so much. So it would be interesting to see, you know, if they do potentially make changes.
Sorry, I think it also
Go on,
depends
mate.
how effective they are, because Rob Cross wasn't effective. He wasn't hitting the numbers that were required. So I think with Michael Smith going fast pace, you can afford to have your teammate that's a little bit slow if, as a result of it, they're still hitting the numbers that you need to hit to get you over the line. And Rob Cross wasn't doing that.
Bit of controversy. I mean, like we say, Michael Smith just doubles doesn't seem to be his forte as a rhythm player, as a fast player. Do you think there'd ever be a time or a conversation of potentially replacing him? Aggie.
Of Michael Smith?
Yeah.
No, that's what I mentioned. I don't think you can replace him, because when he's up at the hockey, I think he's too good. And I think when he's got that rhythm behind him, he can be one of, or he's already proven that he is at times the best in the world.
Fair
Would you
enough.
agree? I know you obviously as a Smith fan.
Yeah, I like Smith a lot. Big fan of him. Probably my favourite darts player right now. So I'd say no personally. I was kind of playing devil's advocate, and the fact that doubles clearly just doesn't suit his game. So are we willing to put up with that? You know, there's always going to be that bit of a hand tied behind his back when it comes to darts, double in the doubles format. But yeah, no one's disputing is probably the best player in the world. I mean, Gerwin Price is right up there in the minute, but yeah, it's just a conversation, isn't it?
So before we get stuck into Kempy's combat corner, Sam, first time World Cup doubles format. What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, loved it. Nice change of pace from obviously the standard Premier League format. So yeah, I will definitely be tuning in. You said 2 years' time. I'm not sure on that. I think it's every year.
I thought it was every 2 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
It's every year. And what I don't like about it, I'll tell you what I don't like about it. Actually, I don't like that it's been in Frankfurt for about 3 years on the bounce. I don't rate
I'm
that.
glad you said that. I'm glad you have said that. Carry on.
Yeah, why wouldn't you have it in a different country every single time? It's just mind blowing to me that Germany are always the not favourites, because obviously they've got pretty average players. Well, Clemens with class, to be fair, and he probably will be coming on the circuit. But yeah, just to give them that home crowd every time just seems a little bit off to me. And you know, put it in the O2, put it in Rotterdam, you know, put it in Germany, mix it up around Europe, and even take it out of Europe. You know, take it to the Americas and even Japan or Asia, anywhere like that.
Might not be a bad idea for me, in my opinion, to the old Eurovision. If you win it, it's at your gaff for the next year.
I thought that over the weekend, mate. I like it.
Maybe so. But then
and then you know, Eddie Hearn and Matchroom and the PDC have been mentioning they want to open up darts to a new audience with the help of Ariel Hawani.
Saudi Arabia next time then.
Yeah, with the help of Ariel Hawani on the in the USA, in New York City. They had an event at Madison Square Garden, which I think did really well. So yeah, I definitely think that wouldn't be such a bad idea, because you know what, the darts fans in that country will be riding the wave of the previous year, and they'll be definitely right up for going to see their home nation champions defending their crown at home. I think that'd be a really good idea, and one I'd like to see implement. So good point from you there, Sam.
Well, it's a nice idea.
Yeah.
I must actually slightly disagree with the pair of you. I must admit, I don't know if I quite like the Eurovision format. The only reason is I think you kind of get trapped in a vicious circle with that. So I think you'd be passing it between England and Holland and potentially Belgium. And
surely that's better than Frankfurt every year, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely better, but I'm just saying it doesn't have to be one or the other, does it? For me, open it up to the whole world, and have countries host it that have not done well in it, and all of a sudden that would build interest that way. And you know, I think if you went to the people that won it, that instantly gives them that advantage for next year. They've won it. They're obviously good. They're going to have their own crowd behind them for the next year. So yeah,
you have got to look at it in a commercial sense, though. I mean, you've had some teams that have played in it this year. I mean, just to give you an example, and no disrespect to Guyana. But you know, they're not going to come close to winning it. And if you try and host an event in Guyana, how many tickets are the PDC going to sell for maybe one of their best profitable weekends in darts over the course of the year?
Probably,
so it still has got
probably
to
kidnapped.
It would be one. It'd be the one of the most white. Carry on. It'll be a white hot crowd. I can't believe you said that. But yeah, leave it there. The next major tournament is the World Match Play, which is next month in Blackpool. It's a great tournament. So Sam, I'm sure you'll enjoy that one, and we'll preview that when the weekend comes. I can't believe you just said that. There's no editing anymore, so we have to leave it.
No, fuck that. I'm going out. I'm Bobby Lee, baby.
Well, then,
I can say what I want.
Are we going to finally? Are we going to get onto the final ever edition of Kempy's Comeback Corner? Then are we?
Mate,
finish off with a bang because we're going to get cancelled as soon as this comes out. So
so hurry up, talk us through Fight Night, mate, and give us a little early preview of what's coming up in boxing.
Yeah, well, if you are still listening, I don't associate myself with those comments that Sam White has made. They are not the views of myself or Loaded Sport. UFC 290 is coming up in the next weekend. The reason that I'm covering this now is due to the fact that I am away next week. Unfortunately, well, all of us will be away actually on this basis, but I'm actually away and I won't be podcasting. I won't be recording next week as I am going on my hollybobs and playing some golf. But yeah, UFC 290 will be coming up next weekend with Alexander Volkanovski, the UFC featherweight champion of the world, defending his crown against Yair Rodriguez, the interim featherweight champion. And what an absolute cracker that plans to be. Alexander Volkanovski getting that very, very razor close loss against Islam Makhachev for the undisputed lightweight championship in his last fight, trying to become a double champ, following the footsteps of Conor McGregor, Daniel Cormier, and the like. Unfortunately, coming up very, very well, only slightly short in that one, and now has gone back down to 145 to defend his crown, as I say. Brandon Moreno against Alexandre Pantoja in the co-main event for the flyweight title. This card is absolutely stacked off the chain. An unbelievable co-main event. Pantoja, not probably the most exciting prospect in that division, but you know what? Brandon Moreno and Davidson Figueiredo and others along the way in the last few years have really sparked the flyweight division back into life after it was potentially going to be swept under the carpet by Dana White if TJ Dillashaw would have won that 125-pound belt from the old Triple C. Henry Cejudo, middleweight fight, Robert Whittaker, Dricus du Plessis. Robert Whittaker, a former middleweight champion of the world, against rising contender and potential future star Dricus du Plessis in the battle of the guys from the lads from down south, as it were. Dricus du Plessis, South African, Robert Whittaker from Australia, and that's going to be a fantastic middleweight fight, and you'd like to think potentially the winner of that fight will fight Israel Adesanya next for the middleweight championship of the world. Lightweight fight, a real cracker, Jalen Turner against Dan Hooker. Not that many title ramifications for this one, I don't believe, due to the fact that the lightweight division just is so strong and stacked to the gills with strong contenders. But the middleweight fight between Bo Nickel and Trezan Gore. If you remember my previous preview on a Bo Nickel fight, I told you guys that he was the one to watch, and he finished his opponent with aplomb in his UFC debut. So watch out for Bo Nickel. I think it's going to be a very, very quick night for him. Once again, rising middleweight contender Bo Nickel. And in the main event of the prelims, we get the legend, ruthless Robbie Lawler against Nico Price in what promises to be an unbelievable fight. I believe they are both coming off of losses. Robbie Lawler, I believe, is coming off a loss against Brian Barberena, after beating Nick Diaz in a very, very poor performance by Nick Diaz by any means, by anybody's sort of measuring stick. So it's going to be a real interesting and really good night of fights. UFC 289 was a little bit of a slow burner. We saw Amanda Nunes retiring from the sport as the greatest female fighter of all time. But ultimately, UFC 290 is back with a bang. Before that, we've got Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria this weekend. It's from the Veterans Memorial Arena in Jacksonville. What's he doing? What an unbelievable fight this is going to be and have title ramifications potentially in the featherweight division. If not, getting very, very close to that top two spot, hopefully for either of those contenders, or the top three at least. Josh Emmett, again, he's got real knockout power. He's got no problem with stopping his opponents against Ilia Topuria, a fighter from Georgia who's got a real up-and-coming contender who's got a pretty decent record to his name, 13 wins, no losses, no draws, and like I say, he's on a 13-fight win streak, which, you know, last fight beating Bryce Mitchell, who's a hot contender as well. It's going to be a very, very interesting night of fights this weekend. One more thing I'm going to very, very quickly cover on Kempy's Combat Corner, as we said, the final edition of Kempy's Combat Corner, is Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. This is a fight that has been discussed in our Discord chat. I've mentioned it a few times tonight, but I'm going to mention it again. Penciled in for July the 29th. It is boxing, so it may get cancelled beforehand. But ultimately, what an unbelievable, scary good fight that's going to be. The undisputed welterweight title clash is going to be taking place in Las Vegas, Nevada at the T-Mobile Arena. A very, very early / late one for UK fight fans, 4 o'clock in the morning. But to be honest with you, I think this one's going to be worth it. It's the closest fight that I can't predict in a long, long time. Terence Crawford, more seasoned, more experienced, but potentially a little bit slower, you might say, but more intelligent. Errol Spence probably got the athletic advantage, but not quite got the boxing IQ that Terence Crawford has. This is a fight that boxing fans have been clamouring for many, many years. We will be previewing this in a little bit more detail closer to the time. But guys, Kempy's Combat Corner is absolutely on fire because we've got some fantastic fights coming up in the next few weeks, and I'm looking forward to discussing a little bit more in a few weeks' time with yourselves. So as I've said before a few times so far, we have got a new Discord channel that we've put together to go alongside the Facebook community forum. If anybody wants to discuss boxing, MMA, fighting, or anything like that with ourselves on Discord, any predictions for this weekend's UFC 290, or like we've said, Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence, the fight of the year so far, and potentially the fight of the year altogether on paper, please drop it in there, and we'd love to discuss it with you. So good fights coming up, Dawson.
Mate, you must be absolutely buzzing as a combat fan, but that is everything for episode 54. It's in the books. And lads, next week, there is going to be no Kempy. So as usual, when I'm here and I'm doing the business, I'll talk about weekends. But Kemp, more importantly, talk us through the holiday that's coming up and why you're not going to be here next week.
Oh, it's one that, you know what, it's at the point now where, you know, when you're so excited for a holiday, it's not even excitement anymore. It's literally just like, get me on that plane, I don't even care.
Feel sick with excitement.
Not even that, mate, anymore.
Like Christmas Eve when you were a kid.
No, it's not. It's past that. It's past that. It's literally at the point where I've not had a proper holiday since before COVID. So it's like, oh my God, just get me there. Just get me on that plane. I think as soon as I get to the airport and get that first airport beer, I'll be really excited. But yeah, we're going to Spain. A Loaded Sport alum, Mujib Sadat, myself. I don't know if I can mention the other two names. We might get taken off air for the second reason. Another couple of friends coming with us as well, and we're going to be playing some golf next week, and hopefully putting Xander Schauffele and Tiger Woods and John Rahm to shame. I would doubt it. I'm taking extra balls just in case, but it's going to be a fantastic week, and I'm looking forward to it.
I think there's more danger of us getting cancelled from you mentioning their names than me mentioning kidnapping.
Yeah, no, I would say so. Yeah, that's why I avoided it. That's why I skirted around it as quick as I could.
And I won't be putting the mortgage on you performing better than them like you did with Arsenal. But you, Mudge, Dib, day one, all by yourself, doing a couple of rounds of golf. Dog due to join you at a later date. That day one's got to be nice and spicy and tasty, and it compared to the rest of the holiday.
Yeah, nice one, brother.
Ask you a question, mate, but it's all right.
You pissed, Ken?
Me, sorry. I thought you were talking to Adam.
No, I mean, I don't know why I've been talking about
Sorry. No, go on, sorry. Say it again.
Let's reset then. I can't
reset.
cut that 30 seconds, but let's
Come
go
back,
again.
Come back.
I said day one, you Dib and Mudge and enjoying life out on the course. Dog to join you at a later date. That day one's got to be nice and sweet and tasty as the best day of the holiday, surely.
Oh yeah. Because Dog won't be there, it will be ideal, and we are dreading his arrival to the airport. But hopefully, I don't know if you've seen the Benidorm Christmas special where they jump in the car with that random guy and he takes them up to the top of the Solana. But hopefully, Nardog gets chucked in an unmarked cab and suffers the same fate of anybody going to a particular darts tournament. According to Sam White.
To be fair, mate, it wouldn't be our first experience of being in a random country and Dog getting in a random car and us being worried about his safety.
And me thinking he's gone.
Mate, I'll tell you what, you've never in your life been as scared of Kemp in the middle of the Czech Republic as Doug has got in a random car and it's sped off, and then me and Dave are in a bar enjoying ourselves, having the time of our lives. Kempy's in the middle of the Czech Republic thinking his mate has just been sped off in a random car thinking he's dead. So
what gets me most out of that whole story is Kemp thinking, "Poor Mama, how's he gonna break this to Mama?"
That's the only thing I could think. Only thing I could think.
And it was the right thing to think, to be fair, but the rest of us were none the wiser, mate. So bless you for having gone through that experience. You're the only one that was come out of that with a negative experience. But we'll miss you next week, I'm sure, mate. But as long as you're having fun, that's all that matters. Adam, what's the plan for the weekend, mate?
I don't really have one. I think I'm just going to go on Sunday. Probably go to Marlborough again. Have another go on the 9 holes. See if I can beat my score from last time. Other than that, just chill for the weekend. Hopefully the weather will be nice, so I'll be able to do that.
Yes, it's you're pushing like 25 plus on Saturday, mate. So it'll probably be the better day, but no rain plans, so you'll be fine if you want to get out there. Sam, is it the Star? Are you seeing Paul? What's happening?
No, not this week, I don't think. As you know, actually, we will be going tomorrow. We've both got the day off work, me and Katie have, and we will be meeting you up in Sheffield on Friday night. We're going for a bit of food in Brewski's, and if anyone's seen that on Instagram, well, the food looks absolutely tremendous. And then we're going to, I'm not going to lie, I've still not looked it up, so this is the ball's completely in your court with this one. We're going to a bit of a detective show, and they're discussing some former grisly murders and all that. I thought, you know what, it's a bit of a change of pace. It's something I've never done before, so yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not, mate? Well, we went to one in Rotherham a few months back, which led to, well, if it went for that, we won't be going tomorrow night, but it was quite interesting learning a little bit about the sort of mindset of people like that have done stuff. So you're not going to necessarily learn much, but it's certainly an interesting conversation.
Are you trying to say that I'm of equal mind of the people that commit these fucking murders?
Mate, I mean, I said it earlier, but I'll say it again for the purpose of this. But when we went last time, she was taking notes, so I'm a bit nice. Concerned. But you'll come out of it thinking, yeah, that was quite enjoyable actually.
Sat there with readers perched on end at nose with notepads.
Honestly, right on nub there on end. Nub's the word, isn't it? That's
almost falling off.
Yeah. It's got the perfect purchase right on a little bit there on end. That's how much they're on. But lads,
you don't need to start worrying until she's got some string wrapped around them, and then you are in trouble. When she's got
a pencil.
I thought you were going to say a French moustache.
That usually doesn't kick into like the 50s, does it? So she'll be all right for a little bit at least. But lads, absolutely buzzing to be back.
Nice one, brother. What's your weekend plans, Kempy?
I asked you to do that. Oh no, we asked about the holiday. That's what it was. Right, we got a weekend before that. Talk us through it.
We have method.
Playing some Halo, no? We're playing some Halo.
Yeah, we'll be playing some Halo. Yeah, we're back on the heart train as well with Halo. So I'm sure we'll probably plug Sam's Twitch channel in the Discord as well.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, we've got to do it. But yeah,
he's not dabbled in the gaming text channel yet, has he?
No, not just yet. But watch this space. But yeah, I was toying with the idea of going for a game of golf, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to save myself for when we go away. I'm going to give my clubs a good clean. I'm going to get packed. I'm going to get all my stuff sorted for my holiday, and I'm going to have a nice chilled one and catch up on some gaming and maybe some series as well. So a bit of a geeky and a bit of a boring weekend, but I'm looking forward to it.
Sounds good to me, mate. And we always do predictions, so I suppose while I've remembered, give us a prediction who comes out on top on the holiday.
Well, there's a few different games, I suppose. We've got a couple of games I think where we're just sort of going 4-ball.
I don't think you were talking about golf.
All right. We're talking about the bedroom.
So he comes out on top, mate.
Well, yeah, that's it. Well, I would imagine that it'll be. It won't be Nidog. We know that for a fact. You know, if anybody's a bottom boy, it's him. But if we're sticking to golf,
he's not a bottom boy, mate. He's sat in the corner enjoying it.
That's true. We're going to be playing me and Dib against Dog and Mudge. We're going to be playing me and Mudge against Dog and Dib, and so on and so forth. And we're going to do one round where we're going to play as a team, all four of us, and we're going to try and break 65. So that'll be a very, very interesting round. And hopefully between the four of us, we'll be able to put a decent scorecard together. But obviously...
Par 30.
Yeah, well, in La Manga, the home of golf in Spain, I would imagine not. But watch this space. I think we've reserved that one for the mini golf day. I'm not quite sure, but we'll see. But yeah, obviously watch this space. In a couple of weeks' time, I will be back on the podcast. I will review the holiday and everything that goes into it, and I'm looking forward to it very much.
Can't wait to hear all about it. And you did remind me about the Discord, because I wasn't going to plug the socials. I was just going to say bye and that's it. But yeah. The socials, and I'll try and remember. I'm a bit rusty, lads, but I'm sure I'll still do better than what you lads have done over the last couple of weeks. But Facebook.
To be fair, I think last week we did all right. To be fair,
no. I've got. You did. You're absolutely right. But I've got one pet peeve I'm going to call one person out for. Adam, people use apps, not websites anymore. So stop saying facebook.com / whatever it is. Go on your Facebook app and search Loaded Sport and click follow or like or whatever it is that is the option there. If you want to join the forum, search Loaded Sport Community Forum, hit join, one of us will add you. If you want to follow us on TikTok or Twitter, search @Loaded Sport. This is the one. Instagram @Loaded_Sport. Just and then recently added this week, we've set up a Discord. So if you're listening to this, if you're at this point, we've got a lot of different channels for a lot of different sports. So if you want to be a part of it, drop one of us a message and we'll add you to it. We'll send you the link. There's your social, lads. Nailed it.
I think my pet peeve on your delivery of the socials there, and very well done. You didn't make any mistakes, but I think you've been very, very harsh on Aggie there. To be honest with you, you've got to remember.
No. Let me finish my point. I'm not letting you give him any credit.
2 weeks ago, this man graduated from the gramophone, right? So now you're going to come to us and have a go at him about using websites rather than apps. That boy has discovered the internet in the last couple of weeks, and you're having to go at him like that. I can't believe it. He's still got an hamster running round wheel to generate his electricity, so you can't fucking have a go at him about that one. Come on, be a bit.
Find us on Facebook @http://
Search us on Ask Jeeves or AOL.
Adam, what's your thoughts on, to close it off, mate? What's your thoughts on not recommended going on the app and searching for it over facebook.com / whatever you said?
Loaded Sport. I think a lot of people still use the internet, so I think on websites as opposed to using the app, you should be allowed to go on it.
No one's banned from it, mate. You're just sending them such a long way around. But anyway, good night, everyone. See you next week.
In a bit, boys.
See you later.